Okay. So,
I don't
welcome
understand.
everyone to our monthly Arts and Health Masterclass for Encore. We're very excited to have Abigail Hanlon here to share about music therapy and therapeutic music and talk a little bit about what each one is and isn't and how they can be complementary, and how we've engaged with her and the larger Goodwin Living organization for part of our Arts for Life programming. So there will be time at the end for questions and answers. And there's also a couple of interactive things. So feel free to be comfortable, camera on, camera off. But I hope that you'll participate. And I'm going to turn things over to Abigail so she can introduce herself. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, thank you so much. So, as Marianne said before, my name is Abigail Hanlon, and I am the music therapist at Goodwin House Alexandria. And so, yes, tonight we'll be talking about music therapy and therapeutic music. We'll talk about our collaboration with Encore Creativity as well. So, to start things off, we're going to introduce ourselves. I'll define music therapy, go into a little bit of the history of how music therapy got started, and then also head into what it takes to train as a music therapist and the different populations that we serve. I'll get a little bit into like the different methods and what my day-to-day looks like. Then we'll have a short break, an instrumental break. I'll talk specifically about the benefits for older adults, and then we'll get into cats, which I'll explain in a little bit, but it's not the musical, so don't get excited. We'll have another quick break. I'll go into some frameworks or kind of different ways that music therapists practice and why music choice and culture are really important. We'll have another break, and then we'll get into the therapy versus therapeutic discussion. So that's very interactive. Again, you can definitely keep your cameras off, but if you'd like to participate, you can unmute yourself. And then we'll talk about our collaboration, melody makers, sentimental journey singers, and then we'll end with a finale. So, all right. So if you had to describe yourself, either who you are or your current emotional state, by comparing yourself to an instrument, what instrument would you be right now? Or you can answer the question, what genre of music would you ban completely? I think for me, the emotional, who I am is probably, have you heard of a theremin instrument? Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit creative and a little bit weird and a little bit kind of magical. You don't really know what's going on. That kind of describes me. But does anybody else have an answer to either of these questions?
This is Pauline. I think I would describe myself as a flute because it's a wind instrument and I'm a singer.
Yes.
And my biggest problem is breath control.
Right.
And that is something that you definitely have to have playing the flute. And what genre of music would I ban completely? None. I think
Okay.
all important whether I like it or not. And it's just music is an expression of uh, of the way you perceive the world, whether you realize it or not. And that to me is the reason why music is different from era to era.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So, what is music therapy? Music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based practice it's the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals, and you're working within a therapeutic relationship with a credentialed therapist. So this is a very long-winded way of saying that Music therapy is essentially the use of music in a clinical and evidence-based way to help you work through challenges in your life. Those challenges could be anything from working through a difficult emotional time. Maybe perhaps you're grieving, or maybe perhaps you've just had a very, very big life change. And it could also help with maintaining your cognitive and physical health. Music is really wonderful in the fact that it's a very flexible modality to meet whatever need that you may have. So music therapy as a profession is rather new, but the use of music to impact the human condition and the human experience is not. The idea that music can impact your health goes back to Aristotle, and in some indigenous cultures, it's well before that. Music is sometimes, you might hear the term that like music is sometimes a part of like healing ritual. There's singing, there's chanting. There's a lot of cultures back in the day before Aristotle that used music in that way. Music therapy, the term first surfaced in 1789 in Columbian Magazine, it's an article that titled Music Physically Considered. And in the early 1800s, music therapy was referenced in medical dissertations and was considered as a way to treat medical diseases and to alter dream states during psychotherapy.
Question, please. What country was the Columbian magazine issued in?
That was the United States,
Thank
I
you.
believe. During the break, I'll confirm that for you, Paula. During the 1940s and 50s, music therapy became formally established as a profession. It was very, even though it was established then, it was a very, I guess it wasn't as well known. This started when hospital musicians started playing music for World War I and World War II veterans of PTSD. And they noticed how big of an impact music had on lessening their panic attacks, lessening their traumatic responses. And so there were doctors that said, hey, this should really be a thing. We should really establish this because it is so important. And so in 1944, the first music therapy training program was established at Michigan State. And then in 1950, the National Association for Music Therapy was founded. We had jumped to 1983, and the board certification for music therapy was established. So this basically said that in order to call yourself a music therapist, you have to pass this test or you have to meet these requirements. So it really set out these standards for what music therapy practice should be. And then in 1998, the Music Therapy Association was established, and it merged all of these music therapy associations into one, making it much stronger. And then so music therapy education and accreditation. A music therapist must complete a 4-year undergraduate program. It has to be certified by the American Music Therapy Association. If you go to a university that isn't certified by that association, your music therapy degree does not count. You also have to complete a 1,200-hour internship with clinical supervision, so you're practicing under an established music therapist. And then you also have to pass your board certification exam after you've completed your internship. There are also master's and PhD level programs. And then some music therapists continue their education with specialized trainings or licenses. So I personally have what's called a residence in counseling license right now. And then after I'm finished with this, these hours that I have to collect, I'll have my LPC, which is the mental health counseling license in Virginia. Some states go the extra mile and they have licensure requirements. So you can read the whole list there. Virginia is on that list. They established their licensure in 2020. However, they have yet to come out with the process of attaining that. So we're still waiting to hear back on what it'll take for us to gain our licensure. It can be achieved through time spent practicing. So they'll say you can only get your license after you practice for 5 years. Or they may say, we just need your board certification exam results. Or sometimes, in some cases, you have to take an extra exam. This is really important for music therapy that we are gaining licensure because it impacts Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, meaning that there's less of a financial burden on the people that we work with. And it also ensures the protection of our clients. Right now, anybody, if hospitals or facilities are not careful enough, anybody can walk into a hospital and say, I'm a music therapist. But if nobody knows that they're actually supposed to have their certification, you could have somebody underqualified working with very vulnerable people. So licensure makes it more official, makes it even in some cases illegal to call yourself a music therapist without the proper education. So this is my personal journey to getting licensure or getting my board certification and licensure. I went to Marywood University, and then my 1,200-hour internship was at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And then I went back to get my master's degree at Drexel. So it was a double master's in music therapy and mental health counseling. And then I did some practices in Reading Hospital with the NICU and some hospice. And then I also worked in a geriatric behavioral health hospital. I'm currently the music therapist at Goodman House Alexandria. This is my third year going on fourth. And then I'm currently studying to get my mental health license in the state of Virginia. And then last November, I also became an end-of-life doula. And that is just a certification of training, the completion. They don't have a governing body quite yet. So where can you find music therapy? You can find music therapy pretty much anywhere. You can take a look here at the variety of places that we work in. A lot of music therapists now are working in hospital settings, working in children's hospital settings. We also work in drug and alcohol rehabilitation and psychiatric facilities as well. Those are also two areas where a lot of music therapists practice. And the other setting that we typically practice in is also older adult communities. There are some music therapy private practices within our area. So we're really lucky to have that. But yeah, a lot of us work in a wide variety of places. So this is going to get into how music therapy kind of works, some of the things that we will use to help people meet their goals. So there are 4 methods of music therapy. There's receptive. So that's like actively listening to music. We're actually going to do a little bit of that later on in this session. So that is anytime you're listening to music, if music is on your headphones, in the elevator, in the waiting room, if you're on hold, that you're listening to music most of the time. Improvisation is playing music on the spot. So you may have a plan to say, hey, we're going to use this structure. We're going to improvise around this theme. But other than that, there is no plan. There's no written music. You're just playing the instrument that you have, and you're reacting in real time to the other people around you. Recreation is recreating an existing song. So if I were to have a group and I said, today we are going to recreate You Are My Sunshine, and we were all singing You Are My Sunshine, we would have instruments and we were, playing together, that would be recreating music. And then compositional. So that's writing or creating new music. So this is when you're actually creating new music on the spot, but you're writing it down. You're intending to play it again the exact same way. This can be a really wonderful way to help people express themselves, especially when speaking or when finding the words to talk about their challenges can be difficult. So compositional methods can be really helpful for self-expression. Okay, so we have our 4 methods, and within those 4 methods come intervention. So hello and goodbye songs really provide a lot of structure to the session. There's a start and there's an end. And usually I keep those the exact same every session because that signifies to people that the session is starting or the session is ending. So we use the recreation method for that. Group singing. This is probably this produces the most consistent result from what I've seen in the individuals that I work with. Group singing is a really wonderful way to get a sense of group cohesion and a sense of familiarity. A lot of the people that I work with grew up with music in the home, grew up with group singing. So this is another method of recreation. Sometimes it's improvisational, sometimes it's also compositional. Sometimes we're making up new music on the spot, sometimes we're creating new songs to be used again. Music and movement. So we are using the receptive method. We're listening to recorded music. We're doing movements that are technically exercise, but it doesn't feel like exercise because we're using music that we really like. So we're doing a lot of things that exercise our gross and fine motor functioning. And then, like I said before, and improvisation and songwriting are really wonderful ways to help people express themselves. One example that I use a lot is the song "Oh What a Beautiful Morning" from Oklahoma. And so the lyrics go, "Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I have this beautiful feeling everything's going my way." And so in the end, in the breaks of that song, I will ask people, "Is everything going your way today?" And I either get a resounding yes, a kind of maybe, or an absolutely not. And so then I include those in the song later on. And so people feel like they have contributed to the music, but they also feel like their emotional state has been seen and heard. So my day to day is I work with older adults. I work with older adults in our skilled nursing healthcare center on assisted living, and I also work with people in memory support. And so I do a lot of group work. Groups are really wonderful ways to help people maintain their health because there's a very intense social aspect to it. Everybody's coming to the same spot, everybody is singing the same song, everybody is engaging in music, and that social component can be really wonderful and impactful on people's health. So I do a lot of group work. We mainly focus on self-expression, maintaining cognitive and physical abilities. We also do a lot of work around the holidays, especially in the winter time, helping people celebrate holidays. It's a part of our identity. We also do life review, kind of going back and saying, where is home for you? Home could be where you are right now. Home could be where you grew up. What was your career like? The bigger things in people's lives can be helpful for them to review that. And then we also have a goal called the mastery of skill. A lot of times the people that I work with have physical or cognitive disability, and creating musical experiences where they feel like they can participate and that their participation is valued can be really helpful for them to feel a sense of confidence and a sense of autonomy. So for bell choir, we adapt playing the bells in a way where anybody, no matter who you are or what your challenges are, you can come and participate and that you have a place here. In assisted living, we have people who can do most of their activities of daily living, so they can mostly get through the day without assistance, but they do need help every once in a while. And so for people in assisted living, we do some emotional processing. A lot of times, the idea of receiving help can be really difficult for a lot of people. I myself have a very hard time receiving help. So we process what that's like to receive help and to also you know, what is it like to be at this point in your life? We do self-expression work. Grief processing is another big goal that we have. And then we also have the maintaining of cognitive and physical abilities. So those are the things that I work on in group. When I work with people individually in either setting, I usually will work with them if they need some extra behavioral support. So these are people who may have just gone under a transition. They're either transitioning to a newer level of care, or their transition was kind of traumatic for them. So they need some extra help. They need to express themselves or need some emotional support. I also do something called procedural support. So that's where I will come in and make some music and help people feel calm while they're receiving care. And then I also work with people on hospice, and that has its own set of goals. Hospice is usually providing music for comfort and also doing this, engaging in legacy building. So what do they want to leave behind for their family? Do they want to leave a song behind? Do they want to leave a recording of them playing? You know, so that's mainly what I work on with hospice. So this is a little bit about what the literature says about music therapy. So music therapy is effective in reducing anxiety for older adults. It's also positively impacting older adults with depression. And there's even some studies that say that music therapy can improve sleep quality, and duration and efficiency, sleep efficiency in older adults. And then there are there are findings that suggest significant benefits for people who are in chronic pain, especially if you're involving singing. It can be very impactful for people who have chronic pain. And then music therapy also has positive effects on communication, swallowing, breathing, and the emotional aspects of older adults, and the emotional aspects for people who are living with Parkinson's. All right, so this is the cats. Cats, again, like I said at the beginning, is not the musical, and it's not the cute furry animal. CATS stands for Creative Arts Therapy. So music therapy is part of a larger set of therapies called the creative arts therapies. The other modalities or the other types of therapies involved in this larger set is art therapy, dance, and dance movement therapy. So together, all three is music, art, and dance. More recently, writing and poetry therapy, or creative writing and poetry therapy, is up and coming as an official therapy, which is quite cool. These therapies, like music therapy, use art, use dance, and writing in clinically researched ways to help individuals work through the challenges in their lives. We often collaborate together. If you think about dancing, oftentimes you need music. And if you think about making art, there's often a physical motion involved with that. So a lot of us will combine forces and collaborate. And there's a lot of research suggesting that this collaboration can be really beneficial and really make the benefits a lot more than if you were to just engage with one. Okay, so this is our instrumental break. If you had to give up one of the modalities, so art, music, dance, or creative writing for a whole year, which one would you choose and why? And how successful do you think you would be in giving up one of these activities?
I'll take a stab at that, Pauline, again. I really would not like to give up any.
Okay. Understandable.
But if I have to choose one, I think it would be art.
Okay.
Music is paramount to my existence.
Mhm.
Singing, if I couldn't sing anymore, I'd be devastated.
Mhm.
Dance, I would still want to be able I'm slowing down, and I would not want to give that up, because at least it would force me to move. I mean, I'll say movement is dance for me. And creative writing, no, I'd want to be able to express myself. I'd want them all, but I think art, which to me means painting, drawing, I would give that one up, but I would not want to give up any.
Yeah.
And
I'm
why?
right there with
Why would I not? How successful? I don't think I would be successful in giving up anything. I would have to be. It would have to be imposed upon me. Like if I were confined to a wheelchair, obviously I couldn't dance. Although, interestingly enough, when I was a younger woman and I went to a dance, a man in a wheelchair asked me to dance. And I said, certainly. I said, but I've never done this before. How do you do this? He says, well, you take my hand and you just walk, do what you want, and I'll follow you with the wheelchair. So
Nice.
there's a way to do it. It's a way to dance even if you're in a wheelchair, I guess.
That is true. I've seen at my job, I've seen a lot of people dance in their wheelchairs, and wheelchair dancing is an art. There's entire like dance troupes for people who have mobility aids. So like if you have a walker or a cane or a wheelchair, there's a way for you to join this dance troupe, and they do performances all over the nation. It's really quite cool. I just want to call out the Angela Wong said in the chat, I would give up creative writing as I don't like to write, but definitely not music or dance. And then Pat also said, tough choice, probably creative writing. I'm with current speaker for the year. I'm with current speaker for a year, wouldn't want to be forced to give up any. Yes, I'm with you too. I would not want to give up any of these modalities because they are so important to who we are. I think for me personally, it would either be dancing or creative writing. Music and art are very, very important.
Yeah, I'd have a tough choice. I hate writing and I can't dance. So,
Okay.
you know, I think I would, either one of those would go. But although I think, I do a lot of walking, so maybe the dance would come back in an informal way. I mean,
Yeah.
When I married Anne, I had to go rehearse, for my dance at the wedding reception, and
Yeah.
the I had lessons from Fabio of all people, Fabio, who was an Argentine tango dancer, But anyway, he looked at me after the first lesson, and I went back, and he said, "Well, the good news is you look like you're dancing." And the bad news, obviously, was that I wasn't. So anyway, I could give up dance easily enough, I think, but I would have to keep moving around in some other way. Creative
Yeah.
writing is difficult for me. I just hate writing.
Mhm.
I published books because I had to publish or perish, but it was like drawing blood every time I did one. Um, so I could give that up easily.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's really funny you mentioned about the dance lessons because my parents also took ballroom dancing lessons before their wedding, and I think my dad received similar feedback to you in the fact that he it was a bit of a struggle for him. So you're not alone. And then let's see, someone else mentioned that, or Miss Virginia said dance. I very rarely do it. And Angela loves that you took dance lessons from Fabia, Dr. Tambasco. um, and then Pat also said he has a mother-in-law and other friends and relatives that are currently in AL or skilled. All of his modalities, the more physically and mentally active for them, the better. Which I 100% agree. It's really the concept of you use it or you lose it. And these modalities are really great ways for people to engage. And then Faye said, tough to give up any, but perhaps art. My ears hear, my body moves, and the mind creates playful words. It would be appreciating other works of art. Very true. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so we're going to get into some frameworks of music therapy. So not all music therapists practice in the same way. Depending on their population, they may alter how they work with people. So this is just going to give you a general overview of some of the more popular ones. We also have our own style, and we tend to gravitate towards certain frameworks. And then some of these ways of practicing require even more training than just your general music therapy training. So if you'll take a look at the bottom of this slide, there's a big arrow from left to right. And all the way over here, we have neurologic music therapy. And then in the middle, we have something called humanistic. And then at the end, we have guided imagery with music, or the Bani method. So take note that neurologic music therapy and the Bani method are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and humanistic is right in the middle, because this will come back in later. Let's see. Okay, so neurologic music therapy is a very researched and very clinically based practice of music therapy. It's driven by advances in neuroscience and the understanding of perception and cognition, the production of music, and how music can influence and change our brain behavior and our brain and our behavior functioning. All it is to say is that neurologic music therapy is an intensely clinical way to practice. It's a very standardized way to practice, so it uses properties of music to train and retrain the brain. It can actually be prescribed by a doctor as part of rehab services. This style of music therapy is particularly impactful for people with stroke, people recovering from traumatic brain injury, Parkinson's, Huntington's, and cerebral palsy, Alzheimer's, autism, and other neurological diseases that impact our brain function. A lot of the goals are related to loss of speech, loss of coordination, and physical mobilities. And this is an extra training. You can go, it's usually based out of Colorado, and you can go for a whole week. You can go for an intensive few days, but the training itself is quite intensive. Moving on to the Bani method of guided imagery, it's it is on the opposite end of the spectrum. So over here we have neurologic music therapy, very much based in clinical neurological function of the brain, all sorts of things like that. And then we have the Bani method on the opposite end of the spectrum. So this is a music-centered, deep approach to transformational therapy. So what that really means is that your Bani method of guided imagery is more for people who are working through emotional challenges or transformation. It uses a selected sequence of classical music, and it supports the generation and movement through inner experiences. So what that really means is it uses music to elicit the internal response emotionally. Philosophically, it's based on the self-actualizing potential of every human being, meaning that everybody has the potential to realize who they are and to live out who they are. The wisdom of our psyche to lead us towards growth, the power of music to facilitate that growth, and the capacity of human imagination to provide a door to who we are. There's 3 levels of training in addition to your general music therapy training. There's numerous hours of study to complete each level. It takes years for people to reach level 3. And then a lot of these goals that they're working on in these sessions are the healing of trauma, the identification of self, and support through major life changes. So a session, compared to neurologic music therapy, this session is a little bit different. If you were to go through a GIM or a Bani method session, your therapist would welcome you into the room and have you lay down on the couch, which is your very typical therapy kind of kind of image that you get laying down on the couch. They might get you a blanket or a pillow, and then they would start a guided meditation to put you into this relaxed meditative state. And then they would start playing classical music pre-recorded. And then the therapist will, their role is to kind of witness what goes on for you. So in a session, they will say, the client will start talking about what images are provoked by the classical music, what daydreams they're having. The therapist will either guide you through them, ask you follow-up questions. And then after the experience, the therapist will help you come out of your meditative state, and then you'll discuss the imagery and how it relates to the goals. So I was actually a recipient of GIM when I was in grad school. We had a few people who were trying to, reach level 2 in GIM, and they were giving out dirt cheap sessions. So of course I was gonna hop on that. And so this was very helpful for me because this kind of occurred at the end of my grad school program, where I was very unsure of where I was going to go after grad school, what jobs were available, where I would be moving. And so and for me, I'm a very, imagery is very important to me. So I'm a daydreamer, and this worked really, really well. If you are somebody who has, I'm not 100% sure the actual name, Dr. Tambasco, you might have to help me out. It's where you cannot have physical, like you cannot have imagery in your head, like you can't imagine things. If you are somebody who struggles to imagine or daydream, this might be really hard. Okay, so we're moving towards the center of our spectrum here. Humanistic music therapy focuses on the relationship between people and humanity. People are a combination of mind, body, and spirit, and we're all uniquely valued and respected. The core principles of humanistic music therapy is individuality. So each person that you meet is going to be completely unique. Even if you have two people presenting with similar problems, there's still differences in maybe their background or how they're approaching the problem or the resources they have to tackle that problem. Unconditional positive regard is also a very important tenet. You're treating everybody with warmth, empathy, and trust. No matter what they throw at you, you are to remain positive and kind. Self-determination is also very important. It's helping people make their own decisions and reach their full potential. So I, as the therapist, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can help you figure it out and maybe summarize what you're saying to me, but I will not tell you, you need to go do XYZ in order to find happiness. Then there's this element of intersubjectivity. So recognizing the shared experience between the client and the therapist, understanding that we may be going through similar problems, understanding that the humanity that I have is also present in the client that I'm working with. This is largely based off of Carl Rogers' person-centered psychotherapy approach, and it's used to help people create a sense of agency. It's really easily adaptable to a wide variety of goals and multiple areas of wellness. There's no extra training required, and this is one of the most popular frameworks that many creative arts therapists and mental health therapists gravitate towards. So this one did not make the spectrum, but it is worth mentioning. It's probably right next to humanistic therapy on the spectrum. This is called resource-oriented music therapy. So this focuses on the resources and strengths that people and their communities have. So it's kind of like humanistic therapy, but in this framework, you are considering the community also as a client. The clients or the community are the experts on their own experience. So you as a therapist are not in a position of power to say, I know more about your community experience than you do. And the therapist ensures that the client and the community do not become dependent on the therapist. Your job as a therapist is to get in, to help people, and then to eventually leave. Another aspect that is unique to this is the therapist aligns themselves with the community or the person that they're working with and empowers them. In a lot of therapy, in a lot of therapeutic interactions, there's sometimes this power dynamic where the therapist has more power and the client does not. So resource oriented makes you have to make sure that you're coming alongside people, that you're not telling people what to do, that you're not putting yourself in a position where you have more power than your client. There is no training required, but you must have an understanding of the culture and the identity of the clients you're working with. If you do not, you're more likely to do more harm than good. This is sometimes used with communities that have faced catastrophe or significant trauma. There are some music therapists that will work with communities after war or after genocide, and this is a common framework that they use. They also music therapists will also go to communities that have faced natural disasters and help people rebuild and recover from that trauma using this framework. So this leads us to music choice and culture. So both of these things are incredibly important for music therapists to understand. You have to consider what your client enjoys. It may be very different than what the therapist likes. I have come across this myself. You have to learn to play music that you don't like, and you have to learn to tolerate that. You also have to choose appropriate music. The lyrics are incredibly important to the music experience, to music itself. There are songs that are not appropriate within the settings that music therapists work in. For example, I work in a community with older adults. So a lot of the music that I work with is 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We're just getting into the 70s. And then I also have a client that works in works for the prison population. The music that he's working with is rap and hip hop and R&B and popular music. And so if we were to swap music for a day, we would not be very effective music therapists, and we would probably offend a lot of people in the process. So music choices is foundational to what we do. Music within the context of different cultures is also important to consider. It can be viewed as sacred or part of sacred practices. You have, as a therapist, have to understand your client's boundaries with culture. So for example, music therapists working with any individual from an indigenous tribe or Native American tribe, drumming is a significant part of their culture and a significant part of their sacred practices. So I, as a woman, it may be offensive to my client if I were to start drumming. But it may not be offensive if a male music therapist were to start drumming. So those are things that you have to consider. You want to avoid harm in your music choice and in your music playing as best as you possibly can. Okay. Speaking of music, we're going to take 3 to 4 minutes. We're going to mute ourselves. We're not going to share songs, but you can take 3 to 4 minutes to listen to a recording of your favorite song, or you can take 3 to 4 minutes to listen to a naturescape, whether the soundscape, whether that be ocean sounds, bird sounds, city ambiance, and feel free to get up and move, stretch, walk, meditate during this time. So I'll set a timer for 4 minutes and then we'll come back. All right, you can start to come back to the group. Give people a minute. Does anybody want to share what they listened to during this time? If you don't want to share, that's okay too. I know it can be a very personal thing. Our favorite song.
I use Amazon Music, and you know, it starts a my soundtrack because it keeps track of what you listen to. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm always curious to see what it'll show up if I play on that. So this time around, it was one musical theater song, and then the next song was like a spa kind of song, because that's what I tend to listen to while I read in bed at night.
Nice, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Let's see, anybody else? Oh, we have somebody in the chat. Oh, fun. Okay, so Kathleen, excuse me. In honor of St. Pat's Day, I listened to Brennan's Reel. Very appropriate for today.
I could tell you that I didn't listen to anything because it took me 4 minutes to try to find out where my music was. Um,
Okay.
I can tell you can tell that I'm not technologically competent yet, but I've gone to YouTube in the past for lots of music, um, and varieties of music. But I think what was running through my head right now, and a song that I just liked from a long time ago, and I read the lyrics to it, kind of sang it to myself since I couldn't find it. It was Peter,
Yeah.
Paul, and Mary, Hurry Sundown. It's just
Yes.
yeah, just the kind of a plaintive melody that just ran through my head for years and years and years. And
Mhm.
it's kind of it's dealing with suffering and trauma and all kinds of problems, So hurry sundown. I want the day to be over because let the sun go down so that I get rid of all of this, and hurry a sunrise, for this beat
Yeah.
up sundown day. So it's kind of a sad song, but at the same time, it's a hopeful song. And that just runs through my head over and over again for years and years. So I just like it.
Wonderful.
It's just a nice song. So
Yeah.
I couldn't find it, but I've listened to it over the years.
Yeah. And you sang it to yourself. It still counts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I also find that song to be sad, but also hopeful. Like, he's not completely lost in his sadness. He does have
yeah,
that sliver of hope for the next day.
yeah, yeah.
Um, So Angela said, "Sure on This Shining Night" by Martin Lawrenson. We sang it in a very special summer session with our encore conductor, and we just got permission from Encore to sing it at a future concert. I have also sung that piece in choir, and let me tell you, it is also one of my favorite pieces that I have sung. It is just stunning. I love the way it's composed. I have several recordings from different choirs on my Apple Music. So yeah, that's definitely a really, really wonderful piece. And then Faye said, listening to Miraculous Healing Flute in the World. Very cool. Um, I listened to an artist called Dochi. She's a new artist, a relatively new artist, but she has a song called Denial is a River. And she is talking about her bad days. And I deeply enjoy that song. I would not play that at work. It's got a few curse words in it. So just as a heads up, if you decide to explore that. And Pat said she wasn't able to, or they weren't able to dial up something because of technology jam, but had classical music on for 5 straight hours as I did paperwork. That is awesome. Sunday went down to see Oklahoma. Very cool. A clear space in town here was refreshing and wonderful, so you could hear it again. And so wonderful to hear it again earlier on in the session. For me, music constantly messages and resonates. That's wonderful. Thank you, Pat. Yeah, Oklahoma is a great show to see. All right. Okay, so getting into therapy versus therapeutic. So just as a heads up, this is going to be a little bit more interactive. I will call on you all in a few minutes. So therapy versus therapeutic, they're two very different things. But the important thing to know is that they are both beneficial for us as humans. Therapy and therapeutic music can improve multiple areas of our well-being and can be used as a coping skill during hard times. Those are two really important things about both music therapy and therapeutic music that is really important that we remember that. Therapy is with a credentialed therapist. It's goal-oriented. It's confidential between the therapist and the client, and it's based off of psychotherapy techniques and theories, and also clinical evidence. Therapeutic music is not facilitated by a credentialed therapist. Some people who play therapeutic music might refer to themselves as therapeutic musicians or music thanatologists, but they are not music therapists. So I have 3 different scenarios, and I need your help determining whether or not this is therapy or therapeutic music. Just to review, music therapy with a credentialed therapist, goal-oriented, confidential, based off of psychotherapy techniques. Therapeutic music is not, but both can be helpful. Okay, is this music therapy or therapeutic music? Mira attends a weekly drumming circle in their apartment complex. The leader is a drummer from a local celebrity band. Recently, the leader has been calling the drum circles music therapy. During their sessions, group members talk about their week, their lives, and how they're feeling. Mira has found support and friendship through these sessions. Last week, someone asked if the leader was board certified. He responded with, "Nah, I don't believe in all that credentialing stuff. All we need is the power of music." So, is this music therapy or is this therapeutic music?
This is therapeutic music.
Mm-hmm.
Community therapeutic music, but yeah,
Correct.
therapeutic music.
Yeah, correct. You all hit it. You hit the nail on the head. Yes, this is all therapeutic music. Reason being, the leader isn't a board certified therapist. But again, to highlight the fact that therapeutic music still has a role in our lives, Mira talks about finding friendship and support through these sessions. And they talk about their week and their lives and how they're feeling. So this clearly is beneficial for Mira, but we can't call it music therapy. Okay. So, music therapy or therapeutic music. Martin recently moved across the country due to a change in profession. He has been struggling with adjusting to his new environment and has been experiencing loneliness. He makes music and talks with a music therapist once a week. In their sessions, they talk and make music about his goal of making new friends and how to cope with recent changes in his life. So, music therapy or therapeutic music?
Music therapy.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is music therapy because Martin is meeting with a music therapist, and the music therapist is credentialed. It's also goal-oriented about making new friends and dealing with his recent life changes. Okay, last one. Annabelle has a high-stress job as a senior accountant at a big firm. She likes to run and listen to music after work every day. It helps her de-stress and gives her time to think. She enjoys the endorphins and it usually makes her feel better. Can we call this music therapy?
I think it's therapeutic music.
Correct. Angela also says it's not therapy. It is therapeutic music. Yeah, so you all are hitting the nail on the head. The important part of calling something music therapy is that it's with a credentialed therapist. But these are other really great examples of how music positively impacts us, even if we're not working with a music therapist. Okay, so Goodwin Living and Encore. And Marianne, please feel free to jump in at any time. So a few years ago, I believe it was 2021, we started to collaborate together to create a dementia-friendly choir for older adults with mid to late stage dementia. We came up with the Melody Makers Choir, which some of you may be familiar with or may have heard about. And so this choir structure is quite unique. It pairs an older adult with dementia with another person that doesn't have dementia. And together, this pair will sit next to each other in rehearsal. They'll help each other out. They'll develop a bond and a friendship or a relationship. And it is something that allows people with mid to late stage dementia to participate in a choral setting. We decided to make this a choir that wasn't just meeting people's needs, but was also really empowering for older adults. So we provided them titles with such as ambassador and melody maker. Your melody maker being somebody with dementia, and your person who doesn't have dementia, the ambassador. The reason we chose ambassador is because we wanted people to go out into the community and talk about their experience in choir and talk about their experience talking with someone with dementia. We also provided training to our ambassadors to provide them with skills on how to communicate with individuals with mid to late stage dementia. In our community, and Marianne, you can speak to this too, since you have seen Melody Maker choirs in other communities as well. But in our community, there's not a lot of crossing over between levels of care. Dementia is something that can be really terrifying, rightfully so. You know, sometimes there's a loss of control when you get dementia. And we sometimes say that people don't go over to see people in memory support or in our healthcare center because they're afraid of catching dementia. It's like somehow communicable. And it's quite unfortunate because it then people don't visit their friends as often, and people feel like they can't talk to one another because of dementia. And in reality, they might just need a different way to engage with that person. And so this Melody Makers Choir can provide that opportunity. So our Melody Maker session is structured specifically for people, again, with mid to late stage dementia. We have a welcome song. Every person is welcome and acknowledged. One of the things about living with dementia or any sort of cognitive change is people will often sideline you. So they'll have you sit with them at dinner, but they'll talk about you or they won't talk to you. And that can be a really, really not so great feeling or thing to experience when you have cognitive change. So everybody is acknowledged. Everybody, you ask them how they're doing, and let them know that they are seen and heard and part of a group. We use vocal warm-ups, again, following the concept of you use it or you lose it. It's also a great way for people to kind of loosen up. Some of our vocal warm-ups can be quite silly, and so this often produces a lot of laughter, which is a great way to start a session. We do a movement activity, usually with props, and we also engage in sing-alongs and brain teasers. And we also have a semester song as well. So each week we will practice a different part, or we'll practice all of our semester song and then add things onto it, clapping, patting, hand motions, more instruments, rounds, that sort of thing to increase the difficulty. You may be looking at this and saying, you know, that's a lot of things to include in a rehearsal, and you're right. We don't spend much time on each thing. Each aspect of our session structure is about 10 minutes max, sometimes a lot less. And that is because we want to understand that, or we understand that when we're living with cognitive change, that your ability to attend to an activity may be impacted. So we just want to account for that. We ran a study, excuse me, on how impactful our choir session structure was. We had a mixed methods design investigating the impacts of choral singing. And we also wanted to study the cognitive and physical well-being of residents with dementia, participants' communication skills and interactions with individuals with dementia. And we collected our data through observation and personal interviews over the course of 7 sessions. On average, our participants were able to maintain their cognitive and physical abilities, so that's our melody makers. And then participants without dementia reported increased abilities and confidence in interacting with people with dementia, which is really big. A lot of the people had talked about how they wish they had more training on how to talk to people with dementia. And a lot of the people with dementia mentioned wanting to, be included in the greater community. And at the end, we found that social connections between both groups increased as the rehearsals progressed. One of the wonderful things that I was able to witness was a particular pair in our first Melody Makers choir. One of the residents was in our memory support, Stonebrook, and the other was in independent living, and they got along swimmingly. You would think they would have been lifelong friends. And at the end, we had one rehearsal left, our last performance, and one of the melody makers, her birthday was the following week, and so she was upset that we weren't going to meet after their performance. But the ambassador that she had worked with, went out of her way to go visit that person on Stonebrook on their birthday and sing them happy birthday, and spend time with them. And that was really impactful for both people involved. Okay, so we also have some audio examples of our semester song. So this is from our first semester. This is the first time we sang. Ready? Okay, so that's our semester song. That was the first time we sang it through. And then this is the final part. This is rehearsal number 7. A little bit. Here we go. Ready, set, and. Morning is coming. Are you ready? Morning is coming. Are we ready? Morning is coming. Morning is So you can kind of hear at the end how proud they are. Like, they gave themselves a round of applause. And that's one of the really great, I guess, for lack of a better term, side effect of this group, is that when you provide a space for people to succeed and you adapt it for them and you set them up for success, you can create these really wonderful moments where they can learn a song, and not only learn a song, but learn to sing it in 4-part rounds while patting and clapping. And it's a wonderful sense of accomplishment for a lot of people. Ready, set. Okay. So Marianne, feel free to jump in here. Not only do we have the Melody Makers Choir, but we also have the Sentimental Journey Singers group. So Marianne, if you want to go ahead and jump in, please feel free.
Sure. So our Sentimental Journey Singers group is for those in the earlier stages, early to mid stage cognitive change. And our first group, we partnered with Insight Memory Care out here in Fairfax, Virginia, which is a day center. And so a lot of our folks that we serve in this group are not on a memory care floor yet. Most of them are living at home. We consider that independent living, even though they probably have in-home care or loved ones that are taking care of them. But they are not in a memory care facility or on a memory care floor yet. And so similar to Melody Makers, we aim for kind of a one-to-one. We really want the singer to come with their care partner to sing together. Because what we find is so many times in this stage, the care partner is starting to do things for their loved one. And this is something that they can truly do together. Some of them share music, some of them have their own music. We kind of let them set their preference as to how they want to do that. And in this group, because it is earlier stage, we are singing more traditional choral pieces for those of you that are singers with encore. Those would be, pieces that are similar to, chorale or rocks, where we have octavos that we're looking at, although we do offer them word sheets if they would prefer to have a word sheet. But this is much simpler. So we offer our conductors that facilitate the groups, because every group is different depending on where everybody is on their journey and how much choral experience they may have had throughout their life. We offer them unison pieces, 2-part pieces, up to 3 parts. And we kind of let the conductors of the individual groups choose what they think would work best with their choirs. And then we also have volunteer singers. Some of you on this call are volunteer singers with one of our groups. So those are folks from chorale or rocks, or just from the community that come and sing. I have my group at Insight. I have several that have lost their loved ones already to Alzheimer's, but continue to sing. And because it's their way of giving back. And so then they partner up with somebody who may not have a care partner present, and they sing with them. And as I said, it's a little bit more of a community choir focus, where we're learning several songs. We have a longer semester, 15 weeks, like we do our chorale and rocks, and we do a concert at the end of the semester. But I was talking with a prospective new conductor today who came and observed our group over at The View. And we were talking about how it is process over product. The purpose of the group is not the concert. The purpose of the group is coming together each week, building community, building relationships, engaging socially, getting, moving the body, moving the spirit, using the mind. That's the purpose of the group. And if we do those things well, then we have a wonderful performance. But the goal of the group and the purpose of the group is not a performance. But we like to offer that so that they have a chance, as Abigail was talking about, to give something back and to feel that sense of worth, that they have something to offer. The two most the two most impressionable moments I've had with these groups so far. One was after our first Sentimental Journey Singers concert, and we came together, and I said, tell me, how was it? Was it stressful? Do you never want to do that again? Was it horrible? Was it good? And one of the singers said, they clapped for us. They liked what we did. And I said, well, you did wonderfully. You sang so well. But it was that sense of accomplishment and that sense of pride. I mean, she smiled from ear to ear when she said that. And the other impactful moment I had was our very first Melody Maker session at Bailey's, at Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads. And I did that welcoming song. And after we welcomed each person, I would say, the song says, "It's nice to see you today." And then I would say, "So and so, how are you?" And she looked at me and said, "It's so nice to be seen." And I thought, ooh, first don't cry. um, but that's really the point of these groups, for people to feel seen and heard, and that they have something to contribute and something that they're still able to learn. I think that's a huge impact. To show from that first song, or the first time we sang the song that Abigail played, to the seventh time. And this was a song that none of them had ever heard before. That new learning is still happening. Does it take time and repetition? Oh, yeah. But it is possible. And it's just wonderful to see the relationships that have developed, to see loved ones laugh together and be silly together and have wonderful memories about when they heard this song, or some special memory around a song that we're singing or listening to, is just amazing. So our idea at Encore is to be that CCRC model, that we want you to be able to sing as long as you physically can, from our chorale and rocks to our sentimental journey singers to our melody makers. Goodwin House, we're already starting to have talks about what something might look like on the healthcare floor, or there's hospice. Abigail's worked in hospice, and ways you can bring music into those moments of life as well, so that we're trying to have that continuum of singing throughout all of our communities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marianne. Yeah, I remember you telling me about the Melody Maker story from Bailey's, and it is very hard to not cry when you hear that. Yeah. And what a wonderful thing too, to think about the continuum, not just like I often hear like the continuum of care, but also the continuum of singing. We know how good singing makes us feel and how important it is for a lot of us. And then to offer those experiences, no matter where you are in life, is just wonderful. Yeah. All right. Okay. So this is our final instrumental break. I'm not going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I want you to find an everyday object that could double as an instrument. And if you could bring it, that would be great. Or type in the chat what you found. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I'll set a timer. And then we'll come back and vote on what the most interesting one is. All right. Ready, set, go. All right. Okay. So looking in the chat, we have 2 people that have scissors. That's very cool. Somebody said a shoe. That's a great instrument. Also can double as a weapon against spiders. But yeah, love a good shoe. A stapler. That's a really good one too. A simple little pencil. That's awesome. It would be really cool. Oh, a thick rubber band. It would be really cool if we could create a little orchestra based off of found objects. Water bottle. Yeah, I also have a glass that's like little bit full. A pencil with a toothpaste cup. Nice. A water bottle. Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, we could have a whole little orchestra with found objects. That would be really cool to do. All right. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Or anything they'd like to ask? I also have my contact information down at the bottom. This is my work email and my work phone number. If you locate Goodwin House Alexandria and say you're looking for the music therapist, you'll be able to find me that way too. You're welcome, Angela. Thank you for your kind words. Any questions? If not, that's okay too. Any resources you use regularly to connect music therapy and actual brain function? So I usually use I don't do a lot of neurologic music therapy stuff because I'm not trained. But as far as like resources for brain function, like maintaining cognition, there's a wonderful book. Let me look it up here. Because this was something that I used in my general music therapies. Music. Okay, it's called Rhythm, Music, and the Brain, Scientific Foundations and Clinical Application. I'll write it here in the chat. But this one was really helpful when I was learning how music impacts the brain. Michael. Yeah, so that was really helpful for me, Pat, as far as learning those things, of course. But yeah, that's a really good book. Anything by Michael Ott will be really in the weeds about music and the impact on the brain function.
Because he is the founder facilitator. I don't know what his title is with neurological music therapy, right? He's the big, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's the big one. Yeah. Another great thing that I really liked, if you're into learning more about music in the brain, another book is called Singing Neanderthals. I'm not spelling that right. I think. Hold on. Singing Neanderthals talks about the development of singing and speech and how we have evolved and in our evolution to language and the language part of the brain and music. Yeah, Singing Neanderthals.
Say that's I don't know if it's by Dan Levitin, but that's his big thing is that we sang before we spoke.
We did, yeah, absolutely. This is by Stephen Mithen, and then another person to look up is what did you just say, Marianne? I'm sorry.
Dan Levitin.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because his is Your Brain on Music, and The World in 6 Songs is a great one too.
Yeah. And then another great book is Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks.
Yes.
That also has some case studies on the impact of music in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those are all wonderful resources too. But yeah, if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me. Marianne has my information as well. So thank you all so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Abigail, for being here tonight. I will just say personally, I love working with Abigail, and I'm excited for the future of our partnership with Goodwin and all the support that they give our Arts for Life programming as well as our chorale programs. we're very, very grateful for their support. So thank you so much, and thank you all for attending this evening. If you came in a little bit after we started, or you want to come back and see it again, the recording, give Ethan a few days to get it edited down, but that will be available on our webpage if you want to come back and catch anything. But thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Thanks, Marianne. Bye.
Yes.